The process begins with harvesting. Ripe cocoa pods are harvested twice a year. The harvest times vary from region to region, but the process of turning it into chocolate begins immediately. Ripe pods are gathered every few weeks during the peak season. The high pods are cut with large knives attached to poles, taking care not to damage nearby flowers or buds. The pods are collected in large baskets, which workers carry on their heads, in piles ready for splitting. The pods are then split open by hand, and the seeds or beans, which are covered in a sweet white pulp or mucilage, are removed, ready to undergo the two-part curing process. Fermentation methods vary considerably from country to country, but there are two basic methods: heaps and sweating. The heap method, traditionally used on farms in West Africa, involves piling wet cocoa beans surrounded by the pulp on banana or plantain leaves spread out in a circle on the ground. The heap is covered with more leaves and left for 5 to 6 days, regularly turned to ensure even fermentation. During fermentation, the cocoa pulp clinging to the beans matures and turns into a liquid, which drains away, and the true chocolate flavor starts to develop. Without the fermentation process, there would not be any chocolate flavor. Drying is usually done by spreading the beans out into a single layer in the sun. Most beans are transferred in sacks and transported around the world after drying, so in order to prevent mold, it's important that they're completely dry. Roasting is done by the chocolate maker rather than the farmer. The hot climate required to grow cocoa makes the chocolate making process more challenging. The process and equipment used to roast the beans varies considerably from chocolate maker to chocolate maker. Some use standard ovens, others have specially made systems designed to rotate the beans and roast as evenly and accurately as possible. After the roasting, the cocoa husk has separated from the bean, or at least has been significantly loosened. At this point in the process, the beans are cracked open and the shell is removed in a process called winnowing. In order to remove the husk surrounding the bean, they must be broken. This may be done using a series of rollers through which the beans pass. The rollers crush the beans, breaking them into pieces along with the now brittle husk. The lighter shells are blown away with fans, leaving behind pieces of pure cocoa bean known as nibs. Cocoa nibs are ground with stone rollers until they become a paste known as cocoa mass or cocoa liquor. This pure, unrefined form of chocolate contains both cocoa solids and cocoa butter. They also mix milk and sugar. Traditionally, the cocoa mass is to be transferred to a separate machine called a conch, where it is further refined. Many modern artisans combine the grinding and conching into a single process using a machine called a melanger. This is simply a large metal cylinder with two rotating granite wheels that refine the chocolate. The controlled process of raising, lowering, and raising again the temperature of chocolate to form exactly the right kind of crystals is tempering. Letting untempered chocolate cool naturally causes the chocolate to be soft and crumbly. Tempering can be done by hand, but the process would be enormously time-consuming for the large amounts of chocolate that bar manufacturers have to work with. So most use tempering machines that can heat large quantities of chocolate very accurately. This tempering machine will keep the melted chocolate circulating at exactly the right temperature, making the final step easier. The final step in making a finished chocolate bar is pouring it into a mold. The melted chocolate is simply poured into plastic molds and agitated to remove any air bubbles. Once cooled, the chocolate is wrapped and ready to be sent out. While some of the biggest makers have machines to help with this, most makers still wrap their chocolate completely by hand. And that's how chocolate is made. Here are some fun facts about chocolate. The smell of chocolate increases theta brainwaves, which triggers relaxation. White chocolate isn't technically chocolate because it contains no cocoa solids or cocoa liquor. It takes approximately 400 cocoa beans to make 1 pound of chocolate. The inventor of the chocolate chip cookie sold the idea to Nestle Toll House in return for a lifetime supply of chocolate. M&Ms were created in 1941 as a means for soldiers to enjoy chocolate without it melting.